Recently, residents in Dongguan, Guangdong discovered that their nearby Walmart had suddenly posted a notice announcing the closure of its South City Hongtu Road location effective on the 27th of this month. The notice also reminded customers to shop at other Walmart stores in the city or use the Walmart app. A local filmer mentioned that the store had been struggling with business in recent years, and even long-term customers like themselves had been visiting less often. At the same time, another Walmart in Dongguan East City Expo also posted a closure notice stating it would close on the 30th of this month. According to online sources, this store had been operating for about 22 years and was one of the area's earliest Walmart locations. The local government has not provided any public explanation regarding the closure of these two Walmart stores. After the two closures were announced, the news quickly spread across Douyin, Kuaishou, and WeChat. Netizens commented on how large shopping malls and pedestrian streets closing down left no space for migrant workers to survive, and the workforce has basically moved out. These comments reflect the concerns some residents have about industrial decline and population movement. Walmart entered China in 1996, focusing its stores in first-tier cities. Public data shows that in recent years, Walmart has been continuously adjusting its store structure in many locations, with closure announcements appearing frequently on social media platforms. As early as 2023, Walmart closed several stores, including some older ones in Beijing and some branches in Shanghai. According to reports, in 2024, Walmart is expected to close more than 20 stores in China, mostly in second and third-tier cities. The closure of the two Walmart stores in Dongguan has stirred up memories among residents. One netizen wrote, recalling how Hong Kong and Taiwanese businesses once invested in Dongguan's electronics, manufacturing, and commercial sectors, bring prosperity. However, the scene has changed, and these transformations may become part of the history of Dongguan's rise and fall. Another netizen posted old photos of the streets, lamenting the noticeable changes in Dongguan. Guangdong scholar Wu Xianzhong explained in an interview that the change in Dongguan's population movement is linked to many factory closures, store closures, and migrant workers returning home, as well as residents tightening their belts and living in more difficult conditions. He further pointed out that changes in retail in neighborhoods often reflect a city's vitality, and the closure of stores is one such phenomenon. A netizen shared a video of what they called Dongguan's most unfortunate mall, showing an empty shopping center with all stores facing poor business. In the comments, a netizen said, in the past, buses in Dongguan were packed from morning to night, but now each bus only has a few people. Another netizen added, last year I randomly visited a few large malls in town. They were nicely renovated, but each mall had very few people. The streets and parks were also nearly empty. In the past, it was always crowded, the buses were packed, and now there are barely any people on them. It's a feeling that's hard to put into words. I also frequently see stores posting rental signs, something that used to be unheard of since it was difficult to find a storefront. Interestingly, Walmart's overall performance hasn't been poor. According to its Q3 report released in November 2025, its net sales in China reached about 6.1 billion, a 21.8% increase from the previous year. The company also revealed that its net sales in China for the fiscal year ending January 31st, 2025 were about 20.3 billion. So, if the performance is improving, why are they closing more stores? Walmart has once again adjusted its store operations in China. Experts believe that offline retail is struggling to maintain its previous model due to the double pressure from e-commerce and rising operating costs. The biggest impact of online shopping on traditional big box stores is the dual squeeze of price and convenience. Platforms like Taobao, JD, and Pinduoduo have long used subsidies and price comparison mechanism to reshape consumer habits, making searching for the lowest price a default shopping instinct. At the same time, instant retail with home delivery has completely replaced the in-store shopping process. Online, products are cheaper, ordering is easier, and there are more options, making the advantages that physical stores once relied on to maintain foot traffic almost obsolete. Moreover, the rise of live streaming e-commerce and the front stock warehouse model has further drained foot traffic from offline stores. Live streaming shopping intense marketing allows consumers to make impulse buys right from their phones without the need to visit a store to search for deals. The mature logistics system has reduced the cost of online retail, sharply contrasting with the high rents and labor cost of physical stores. As a result, consumer habits have been permanently rewritten, and large stores have naturally become marginalized by the times. Dongguan resident Ye Xiaoqiang told reporters that the big box store near his home has changed frequently in recent years, with rent, foot traffic, and business constantly fluctuating. There used to be many people, but now malls are becoming fewer and fewer, and retail pressure is increasing. He said some businesses have shifted online, but physical stores are still hard to replace. Traditional stores are still a part of many families' daily lives, though foot traffic is not what it used to be. Other netizens have commented that physical retail is increasingly struggling under the pressure of rent, foot traffic, and competition from online platforms. Residents who used to regularly visit large stores on weekends now find themselves shopping more online, leaving local streets with vacant spaces. However, some industry experts believe that Sam's Club's expansion and growth through e-commerce channels are key drivers of Walmart's rebound in China. In recent years, Sam's Club has become a phenomenal business model in the retail industry. Compared to traditional Walmart stores, Sam's Club has a clearer positioning and more stable customer base. Its membership model targets high and middle income groups, achieving higher per customer spending and stronger customer loyalty through bulk packaging, high quality products, and differentiated supply chains. Data shows that Sam's Club's sales per square meter far exceed those of regular big box stores, and its membership fee system provides stable cash flow and stronger profitability. For Walmart, continuing to focus resources on Sam's Club seems like a natural move. At the same time, Walmart's China's e-commerce business has seen rapid growth over the past 2 years, leveraging its global supply chain and partnership with platforms like JD and Meituan. Online instant retail and warehouse delivery capabilities have significantly improved. Many stores have increased their online sales shares to a considerable level. For consumers, the convenience of 30-minute home delivery directly offsets the value of browsing in physical stores. For Walmart, this model reduces its dependence on physical space and foot traffic, lowering fixed cost pressures. However, some scholars point out that the ongoing wave of store closures, despite profitability, is closely related to Guangdong's business environment. In recent years, many cities in Guangdong have been rapidly expanding their commercial sectors, with shopping centers opening faster than population growth. Developers aiming to boost their scale and political achievements have built increasingly larger and denser commercial spaces. However, the consumer spending power in these cities hasn't expanded at the same pace. As the demographic dividend fades, a large amount of commercial space has been left vacant, while rents remain high. This has led to retail businesses, even when profitable on their financial reports, being dragged down by high rents, high cost, and low foot traffic at individual stores. Scholars describe this as overinvestment in the commercial sector of cities, with Walmart being one of the first to struggle. Additionally, the siphoning effect between Guangdong cities have continued to intensify. Guangzhou and Shenzhen have attracted high-quality consumption, employment opportunities, capital, and talent, leaving cities like Dongguan, Foshan, and Zhongshan struggling in the industrial upgrade. The consumption structure is gradually collapsing. Middle and high-income people drive to Guangzhou to buy luxury goods or go to Sam's Club in Shenzhen, while young people migrate to the north or Shenzhen. What remains are local residents with declining consumption ability and a hollow market after migrant workers leave. For retail businesses, it's not about poor sales, but rather a problem of who to sell to. Reports indicate that Walmart's store closures in China are part of a broader trend among foreign retail giants. French chain Carrefour decline in China is a more typical case. In 2023, Suning.com acquired Carrefour China, hoping to revive its fortunes, but in 2024, several stores, including older ones in Chengdu and Chongqing, closed down. The reasons were the same old problems: high rent, low foot traffic, and competition. Carrefour was once a pioneer of foreign supermarket in China, entering in 1995 and reaching over 200 stores at its peak. Now it has less than 100 stores. Carrefour's French headquarters even acknowledged in its 2025 financial report that the Chinese market is full of challenges, with sales dropping 15%. This isn't just an issue for the company, but also a reflection of the macroeconomic environment. Local companies are facing similar pressures. Yonghui Superstores recently announced the closure of its store in the urban area of Chizhou and Hui on December 30th and will clear out its inventory before then. Since 2021, Yonghui has been closing underperforming stores. Industry insiders say that long-term losses for big box stores have become a common phenomenon. Many chain enterprises that expanded rapidly now face declining consumer spending and can only cut losses by shutting down stores. On December 16, Yonghui closed 2 stores in Shenzhen, Nanshan Life Plaza and Luohu Sun Plaza. Scholar Wu Xiangzhong pointed out that these stores' closures are not isolated cases, but choices made by many companies under operational pressure. He believes that if traditional stores cannot reverse the trend of declining foot traffic, they will continue to shrink in the future. Yonghui's store closures are just a snapshot of the industry turmoil. When retail benchmarks like Pang Donglai, a well-known company, cannot fully resist the pressure of weak consumption, in 2024, Pang Donglai closed several stores in Henan, officially citing optimization of its layout, but insiders understand that the real reason is declining foot traffic and insufficient consumer spending. Meanwhile, new retail models like Meituan Bai and Hema Xianshen continue to expand, seemingly thriving, but they have not changed the overall pressure facing traditional big box stores. In 2024, RT Mart closed more than 30 stores, mainly in East and South China, and China Resources Vanguard also closed several stores in Guangdong in early 2025. The entire industry is shrinking and no one is immune. The closures point to one key fact: market demand is shrinking and consumer purchasing power is declining. The retail industry's foundation is thinning out overall. According to a 2025 report by the China Chain Store and Franchise Association, the closure rate of large retail stores nationwide reached 12%, up from 8% the previous year. Behind this is the slowdown in resident income growth. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, China's per capita disposable income grew by only 4.7% in 2024, far lower than the reported GDP growth rate. On a broader scale, the wave of store closures is a direct reflection of the downgrade in consumption. China's economy is shifting from high-speed growth to an internal circulation model, but domestic demand remains weak. In the first half of 2025, retail sales of consumer goods grew by only 2.1%, far below expectations. Why? High household debt, stable but expensive housing prices, and young people severely cutting back on consumption. Data shows that in 2024, China's household debt reached 62% of GDP, higher than the average in developed countries. People are tightening their belts, and imported goods in supermarkets have become luxury items. Walmart's traditional stores, once a haven for affordable goods, are withering in this environment. However, the deeper reason is hard to separate from policy factors. On the surface, the Chinese government continues to emphasize common prosperity and high-quality development, but in practice, living conditions have long been neglected. Take the dual carbon goals as an example. Some regions have taken simple and forceful measures to implement these targets, shutting down factories to meet their quotas, which has directly led to a large number of job losses. Dongguan's manufacturing industry, heavily reliant on exports, has already been impacted by trade friction and declining orders. Under these circumstances, policies have not provided timely subsidies or transitional support. As a result, factories are closing, workers are returning to their hometowns, urban consumption is sharply decreasing, and foot traffic in malls is dropping. At the same time, official statement continues to stress stabilizing employment and boosting consumption, but the reality contradicts these claims. Employment positions are decreasing and store closures are on the rise. Ordinary workers' lives are becoming more unstable. The so-called people-centered development approach is clearly disconnected from the reality of those at the bottom. Looking at the real estate sector ripple effect, Dongguan's housing prices once skyrocketed, with the average price in 2021 to 2023 reaching over 20,000 yuan per square meter. However, by 2024, residents' confidence in future income and assets had not recovered. Instead, people have become more cautious. With weak demand for housing, consumption naturally cooled, and malls, which are often tied to residential communities, are facing inevitable vacancies and store closures once population vitality weakens. Another key factor is population movement. The number of migrant workers in Dongguan has decreased, and the national trend is similar. In 2025, a report from the National Health Commission revealed that the return rate of migrant workers reached 25%, higher than the previous year. Why? Because the cost of living in cities is high, factory wages are low, with an average monthly salary of 5,000 yuan, about 707 USD. But if they return to their hometowns, they can farm or run small businesses. As a result, urban consumption power has decreased. Walmart stores' closures are just a surface level issue. Behind them lies the disappearance of population dividend. Ironically, the government promotes the urbanization rate exceeding 65%, but in reality, it's hollowing out. From a broader Dongguan perspective, the Pearl River Delta, once a symbol of China's speed, is now showing signs of fatigue. In 2024, Guangzhou's GDP growth rate was only 3.5%, and Shenzhen was slightly higher at 4.2%. Cities like Dongguan and Foshan, which rely on manufacturing, have even lower growth, mostly just moving along by inertia. 10 years ago, such figures would have been unimaginable. Back then, the Pearl River Delta was the engine of national growth, but now it's become a declining area that can't be ignored. The retreat of the manufacturing sector is particularly glaring. Between 2023 and 2025, many large companies started adjusting their supply chains. A typical example is Huawei, which shifted some of its production processes to Southeast Asia. Although its core business remains local, peripheral suppliers have been forced to relocate or shrink as orders move elsewhere. Dongguan, Huizhou, and Foshan have all seen records of factory closures. Even Shenzhen, home to internet giants like Tencent, is not immune. The revenue of these companies mainly comes from online and virtual economies, and they cannot generate a large-scale driving effect on offline retail and community consumption. They support the tax structure and employment, but not the prosperity of physical retail. Scholars point out that this is closely related to the long-term economic repercussions of the zero-COVID policy. The prolonged lockdowns disrupted business operations, and companies have become more cautious during the recovery period. Meanwhile, residents experience income uncertainty, interruptions to work, and a psychological shift towards saving. China's household savings rate rose to about 35% in 2023 and 2024, meaning many households chose to keep their money in the bank rather than spend it in the consumer market. Money isn't lacking, but people are reluctant or unwilling to spend. This mentality is even more evident in cities like those in the Pearl River Delta, which rely heavily on migrant workers. When migrant workers leave, the local consumption power is already limited, making it even harder for retail to survive. In other words, the Pearl River Delta is undergoing a double-layer contraction. The industrial chain is moving outward, and consumer confidence is dropping. External orders are decreasing, internal demand is weak, and while the city still may have its lights on, the actual flow of people, capital, and consumption that sustain economic vitality is becoming increasingly sparse. Walmart, Yonghui, and RT Mart's consecutive store closures reflect the deep restructuring of the Guangdong and national economic structure.